December 2025. Russia just placed the Oreshnik missile system in Belarus, a Mach-10 monster that no country on earth can stop. This is not a normal missile. At Mach-10, it moves so fast that air around it turns into a plasma cloud. And this plasma makes the missile almost invisible to radar. But here is the scary part. Even if NATO somehow spots it, they get only 20 to 30 seconds to react, and no missile defense system in Europe can fire, track, and intercept something that fast in such a tiny window. This is why experts call it undefendable. But while Putin is loading the gun, the United States is quietly getting ready to walk out of the room. Yes, there is a bill in the US Congress right now to completely exit NATO. Think about it. The shield is cracking, and the sword is already in the air. So, why is this happening right now? How did Washington and Moscow push the world to the edge of World War III? And what happens when the 65-kilometer strip of land called the Suwalki Gap becomes the most dangerous place on the planet? Let's break down the real game. Stay till the end, everything will make sense. Let's start with the nightmare that keeps European generals awake at night. For years, we were told NATO is invincible. One for all for one, right? Well, reality check. The all are panicking. Why? Because of a tiny 65-kilometer strip of land on the Poland-Lithuania border called the Suwalki Gap. Think of this gap as NATO's breathing pipe. It is the only land route connecting Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania to the rest of Europe. On one side is Russia's military fortress, Kaliningrad. On the other side is Russia's loyal ally, Belarus. Now here is the dangerous part. This entire region is flat land. No mountains, no rivers, nothing to slow down tanks. It's like an open highway for an invading army. Russia has a huge advantage here. Kaliningrad is already packed with heavy tanks, armored vehicles, and long-range artillery, all pre-positioned and ready. Belarus provides the perfect second front. So if Putin gives the order, Russian forces can close this gap in a few hours. Boom! Baltic states cut off from the rest of Europe. A NATO island surrounded by Russian firepower. And this is not a theory. In 2016, Rand Corporation war games showed that Russia could capture the Baltics in just 60 hours. Not weeks, not days, 60 hours. That's how bad the geography is. And don't look at the railways for help. The Rail Baltica and Via Baltica projects are still unfinished. They are sitting ducks. But here is the twist nobody noticed. While the whole world was focused on Ukraine, Putin quietly moved his nuclear chess pieces. Remember how the West said sanctions would crush Russia? Well, the opposite happened. In November 2024, Russia changed its nuclear doctrine, and this is massive. Earlier, Russia said it would use nuclear weapons only if the Russian state itself was about to be destroyed. Fair enough, that was a high bar, but now the bar is practically on the floor. The new doctrine has two extremely dangerous lines. 1. Critical threat to sovereignty. This is vague on purpose. It can mean anything. A major military loss, a threat to Russian territory, or even an attack on their ally Belarus. 2. Joint attack by nuclear and non-nuclear states. This is the real game changer. What does it mean? If a non-nuclear country attacks Russia using weapons or intelligence from a nuclear country, Russia can treat it as a combined attack. Let me give you a simple example. If Ukraine fires a US-made missile, Russia can say, "This is not a Ukrainian strike. This is a US attack through Ukraine." And under the new doctrine, Russia can respond with nuclear weapons. This is why the world is scared. And to prove he's not bluffing, say hello to Oreshnik. As of December 2025, this hypersonic monster is sitting in Belarus. It flies at Mach 10, 10 times the speed of sound. It has a range of over 1,500 kilometers. It can hit Berlin, Paris, or London before their leaders finish their morning coffee. And the scariest part? It is immune to interception. NATO's air defense cannot stop it. Speaking of air defense, do you want to hear a joke? A very dark joke? NATO's own data admits they have a 95% air defense gap on the eastern flank. Meaning, if 100 missiles come toward Europe, they might stop 5. The other 95? Good luck. Just pray. And here are the real examples that make this even scarier. Germany, the biggest economy in Europe, has only one working Patriot air defense battery. Just one, to cover a 4,000-kilometer territory. Poland asked NATO for 2,000 interceptor missiles for protection. NATO could give them 100. Not 1,000, not 500, just 100. So now you might think, But America will save them. Article 5, right? Well, hold your horses. While Europe is sweating, some American politicians are quietly checking the exit door. Senators like Mike Lee and Thomas Massie are pushing the NATO Act to pull the US out of the alliance. Why? Because they call NATO a Cold War relic. They're tired of paying the bills. Did you know the US pays nearly 16% of NATO's common budget? Hundreds of millions of dollars, while wealthy European nations still won't pay their fair share. Legally, under Article 13 of the treaty, the US just needs to send a one-year notice and they're out. Imagine the panic in Brussels if that letter gets signed. A one-year countdown to chaos. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Russia is not just relying on missiles. They have turned Belarus into a nuclear fortress. Lukashenko admits there are several dozen Russian tactical nukes in his backyard. Russia controls the button, but the guns are pointing west. NATO is finally trying to wake up. In September 2025, after Russian drones started buzzing Polish airspace, they launched something called Operation Eastern Sentry. The goal of this operation is simple: move troops fast, run live fire drills, and show Russia that NATO is watching. Right now, NATO has 30,000 to 50,000 soldiers sitting on the eastern border. But here's the problem: Russia has over 700,000 mobilized troops ready to move. So NATO's response is tiny compared to the size of the threat, and Europe knows it. Estonia is now building 600 concrete bunkers, digging trenches like it's 1917 all over again. But let's be honest, these bunkers are mostly symbolic. They can't stop hypersonic missiles. They can't stop heavy Russian armor. They can't stop the kind of war Putin is preparing for. So the real question is any of this enough? Experts like NATO chief Mark Rutte are warning that Russia could be ready to test NATO in the next 5 years. But the truth is, the real danger is not 5 years later. The danger is right now, late 2025 to early 2026. This period is what analysts call the window of pressure. Why this exact window? Because Ukraine's counteroffensive has stalled. Russia has taken back momentum on the battlefield. Because Russia's factories are running at wartime speed, producing shells, drones, and missiles faster than Europe can replace them. Because Europe is facing a massive ammunition crisis, their stockpiles are almost empty and their production is painfully slow. And because the US is planning to walk out of NATO. So on one side you have Russia with ammo, drones, manpower, and confidence. On the other side, you have NATO arguing about budgets and building pipelines like the EEPS fuel network, a project that won't be ready for 25 years. 25 years? In modern war, you don't even have 25 minutes. If you're enjoying this deep dive into real geopolitics, the stuff mainstream media won't tell you, make sure you subscribe. We are just getting to the most important part. Let's continue. So what does this mean for us, for Bharat, and for the world order? The West is realizing that their rules-based order is crumbling. They sanctioned Russia, and Russia built a war economy. They ignored defense, and now they are naked in front of hypersonic missiles. For India, this is a masterclass in why Atmanirbhar is not just a slogan, it is survival. We cannot rely on anyone, not the West, not the East. If the US pulls out of NATO, Europe collapses into panic. If the Suwalki Gap falls, the American superpower image shatters. We are watching the end of Western dominance and the rise of a brutal, multipolar world. A world where strength is the only currency that matters. The lesson is clear. Weakness invites aggression. Strength commands respect. While Europe builds bunkers and America debates withdrawal, India stands firm, watching, learning, and preparing. The game has changed. The pieces are moving, and the checkmate might be sooner than you think. So I have to ask you, do you think Russia's nuclear threats will force NATO to back down, or will NATO's unity hold in the face of Oreshnik missiles and Belarus nukes? And if the US pulls out of NATO, can Europe defend itself against Russian aggression, or will it collapse without American support? Let me know in the comments. Jai Hind.